welcome to Life LDC. It's February 28th. It's my February update, and my goal was this month to have Lerwick, the Marie Wallin Fair Isle Club 3 garment, finished. I can't believe it. I did it. I had to set myself a goal. I had finished all the knitting on the 26th. I had to get up early on the 27th and finish all the ends in the sleeves and wash it, block it. I actually dug out my my Shetland jumper frame to block it. It was a beautiful day here. The sun was out. I didn't put it in the sun, but there was a nice brisk wind, and it sat outside for a couple of hours, which really got rid of a lot of the dampness. And here it is. I have to tell you, this was a challenging knit. It's very different in that the colors just go all over the place, and there's no repeat of patterns. You know, there's a big repeat on the underarm. It goes from there to there, and then you repeat it again, but really, and the same thing on the sleeve. It starts to repeat again, but nothing, no peri pattern and a border pattern and then a big motif and repeat. It's just wild and crazy. But what makes it work is the subtlety of the shades. They are quite spectacular. They all go together in a really interesting way. They are very similar in value. Makes it very subtle. I love these gray pieces coming down here. It gives the definition to the body versus the border band that goes around the bottom. So the construction was very unique, very interesting for me to try the construction like this. Never seen anything like it, never attempted anything like it before. It's so unusual. It was I had to knit it, and I'm so happy I did. So today's I should say this month's demonstrations, because I do film them during the month. You'll see I'll be in jeans one day and probably in my pajamas on another day, but anyway, I'm going to talk about doing the sleeve, picking up the stitches on the steeped sleeve edge, knitting down on a 40 centimeter 16-inch circular needle, and then my plan was to change to either double pointed, or I was hoping to get some of those new Addi Flex needles, which are very hard to find, I gather. My local yarn store said that she's ordered them, she's still waiting. It's been 2 weeks, because I was hoping to use them for this video and do a demonstration review on them, but they haven't come in yet. I haven't heard from her, and she's really good about that, so I had to improvise, and I came up with a solution. I had 3 16-inch 40 centimeter 3.25 millimeter needles in my needle stash. Don't ask me why. Can't remember any other time I've used these, but I knit my whole sleeve down on 3 circular needles, so I'm going to demonstrate that also. So that's picking up stitches, knitting in the round, knitting on 3 needles, weaving in ends and keeping your yarns from tangling. I have to insert it in here if I remember what it is. So that was the amazing thing. It's done, dusted, loved it. So I'm finished. You remember these are the Scary's mittens from the Marie Shetland book. I love these too, and in one of the photographs in the book, this is worn with the yellow sweater, so I thought I would try them on here today to see what it looked like. You know, can you ever have too much Fair Isle? And if you look at Pringles of Scotland, the famous Scottish knitwear company, it seems that you can never have too much Fair Isle. I'll put a little picture in here. I know this is totally over the top, but I sort of love it, and design collections are supposed to do that. They're supposed to challenge you and make you think. So what do you think? Do you like it? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Let me know. And the one thing I love about these mittens is the dark shade of brown in it. And in my case, I used grouse. It was supposed to be birch, the dark shade of brown in here. Here it is here, dark shade of brown. I really love this, and you know, call me crazy, but I'm contemplating missing this again. I'm whispering because I don't know if can I do it. We had to sign up for the Feral Club in June, I think, of last year, June, because Marie had it open until the beginning of August, because after that point she had to put her order in with Jameson Spinning of Shetland for the yarn, because it had to all be spun, shipped to Marie. Marie had to put it together in kits and ship it out to everybody so that we were all had our kits ready to start in November. So when you think about it, that's June, all the anticipation of June, and then the kit arrives in November, where I think we were supposed to start on the 13th. I couldn't help it. I started on the 1st, you know, experienced feral knitter. I thought I'll just go on with this. And so I did, but in the meantime I had knit these, and I really loved this really dark brown color. So I love Marie's colorway, but I have to tell you, I really did contemplate changing out the dark gray for grouse or birch, one or the other. But sanity ruled, and I thought, you know, this is challenging enough as it is. Just knit it the way it is, and I actually love it. And I had the hubby take some photographs this morning. The fit of this sweater is intriguing. There is no neckline. The fronts are split straight off of the back, which pulls the shoulder seam back. It's back here. I can feel it's right there. So it's a good ways back, and what that does is it shifts the front of the sweater up, and it's short. I did not make it any longer than the pattern called for, and I don't know if I can show you here, because when the front shifts up, the back shifts down, and you get some fabric here. So it's a very critical position. You don't want to have too much fabric hanging down and up, and you know, like, so I eventually decided just to leave it the way it was. When I pressed it, when I washed, blocked, and pressed it, I did give these fronts a good steaming down, and you can see they grew quite a bit, but it is still always going to peak my belt, so it's always going to peak, and my whatever I'm wearing underneath is always going to peak. So right now I have on a Bryn Walker silky top. It does have long sleeves. When I first put this sweater on this morning and had my hubby take some pictures, I just put on a tank top and a big belt for and let the fronts hang loose for a totally different look. So I will share those pictures with you here also. So it can be styled to suit you, to cover up here if you want. I tried it with the longer tunic. On me, I didn't like it. It was just this big plain piece of fabric hanging down. Now, I do have a plan for another top that might solve that problem. And it's, I'm going to keep it secret because it might not ever happen, but you never know. We'll try. So that's my finished object for this month. Here it is with that dark top and belt that I was telling you about. I liked it like that, but I also like the little touch of rust underneath to bring out the colors. I'm looking forward to wearing this quite often. I think it's a beautiful design, and you can see that I am just thrilled to death to have finished it and be able to wear it now. I love this Shetland book. I love this front design, Musa. I've told you about this before. I'm a little bit concerned because of the the shaping of it. But one thing that knitting, again, with Shetland Spindrift, I haven't, I used to knit with it forever. I was knitting the Lerwick here. I suddenly remembered why I love the Shetland yarn so much. It's so light. It can keep you warm, but it is just so light to wear and so easy. So I'm thinking that maybe Musa in the Shetland yarn might just be what I'm going to knit next. And there it is there. I love the side slits. I am going to make it big and boxy and droopy on me. I think I might go for the extra large. Is there such a thing as an extra large? Let me see. I have to look up the pattern. There's an extra large that has a finish. Oh, where's the schematic? Oh, there it is right there. The extra large is 60 inches around. I think that might be sufficient. My chest measurement is, well, anyway, that will give me 14, at least 14, if not 16 inches V. So I'm thinking that's the one. So I'm going to make the extra large, and I'm going to possibly put in just a couple of decreases on the underarm. It takes away that barrel shape just a tiny little bit. It's done in pieces, so I think I am going to look at knitting it in the round. And I love the colors as they are. I might make one change. Again, love Marie's colors, but I might just make one change. I have to decide if it's suitable or not to make that change. So I'll be playing around with colors this month. I have put in my order for this yarn pack, this yarn kit, but this book right here, Marie, has caused a worldwide shortage of Jameson Shetland Spindrift. Everybody, all the yarn stores are waiting for their stocks to arrive, and Jamesons probably are working flat out up there in Sandnes producing all this thing. I think there's 34 colors that Marie used in her collection, so they'll be really producing those shades like crazy. And I've been in contact with 3 different retailers of Spindrift, and they're I think that's the story. They're waiting for their new stock. So my most local Spindrift supplier, she is anticipating by the end of March. So I'm actually hoping that I've got March to plan, to make my mind up about how I'm actually going to knit it. Maybe catch up a little bit on my abstract cushion, because I'd like to finish that. And I don't know, just have a less intense knitting schedule this month. I will have lots of things to talk about at the end of March anyway. I'm thinking, if I haven't started anything yet, and because I am anticipating doing this project with steeks, armhole steeks, maybe even little steeks where the slits are, that next month I will feature steeks, because I do the traditional 10 stitch steek, 8 steek stitches, 2 edge stitches on either side. And if it was a cardigan, I would be making the changes up the front on the steek. That's exactly what I did here. I did a steek up the front and cut all my edges off at the same time. There's no weaving in, keeps the fabric all nice and flexible. So I think March I will do a little intro, an explanation of my steeking, which is not, I didn't invent it. This is the way people have been doing steeks for years. And the way, because you can do this because of the stickiness of the Shetland yarn. Some people don't like the Shetland yarn because it is sticky, but honestly, with a little bit of washing in Eucalan and a little bit of steam pressing, it really softens up the fabric. It's never going to be merino. It's always going to be wool, and you know, just put a little t-shirt underneath it that keeps it away from your skin, and you can you'll be able to wear it, I'm sure. My other outfit, I just had a little tank top underneath this, and all of this was against my skin because when I first put the sleeves on, they were a little bit snug, and I just wore it for about 15 minutes, and it loosened up enough for me to comfortably put this shirt on underneath it. The Jamieson's mill has been producing Shetland yarn, 100% authentic Shetland yarn, on the island since the 70s. I will try and find some more information on that. So they buy the fleece direct from crofters on Shetland. They produce the yarn there. It's all spun, dyed, packaged, balled up. Everything is done there. So it never leaves the island before you get it. So when you actually get it, you have to think it came from Shetland to your local yarn store or your online retailer, and comes to you. So it doesn't go back and forth and wherever. It doesn't go anywhere to get processed. It's authentic Shetland yarn. So next project, Musa. March, I'll be talking about steeking more, and following this there is I think 35 minutes of knitting demonstration for those who want to watch my techniques and things. As I say, I'm not the expert. I'm not telling you that you have to do it my way. I'm just showing you the way I do it, and you can, and maybe it'll help you to refine your own technique. Until next time, happy knitting. My Lerwick sweater's coming along. I finished all the inside of the body. All the ends have been done. I have finished one sleeve. I particularly love this pattern right here. Just love it. So I'm going to show you today a little bit of knitting on my second sleeve, but I'm also going to show you later going from all these ends. I don't weave in and weave out my ends, particularly on a sleeve. I feel it's a small enough circumference that you don't want to be bothered with that. I might weave in and weave out at the underarm seam of a pullover. A cardigan, of course, all my ends are up the middle in the steek where I just cut them off. I'll show you that too someday. Not sure if I'll show you that today. Maybe, might. So on my sleeve here, I've started taking my ends and weaving them in. And all I do is grab a group. You can see the ends group together because they're when your yarns are finishing and then starting. So you have little groups of yarns. So for example, here's 4. The Blue Lovett and Moorit are being woven out, and these 2 are being woven in. Oop, that looks awfully short. So I take one of the outs and one of the ins, and you'll just see they sort of go together. You go off, pair them up, do just a one simple overhand knot, and skim the yarns that way, and I'll show you that. Thread your yarn one strand at a time, following the path of the yarn. So this one's going that direction, and these are the new shades. And you just want to skim them. You don't want to go like completely under the yarn. You just want to go through one ply of the yarn. That's why sharp needle is necessary. And I go to the length of the needle. And this way it's just skimming across the back of the fabric, and it doesn't really make it really, really thick. If you were weaving in tightly, it might, but this is, to me, the best for underarms seams in a sleeve, because you don't want to add bulk. You want to leave your sleeve as flexible as possible. Oh, this little tiny short piece of yarn here. So you end up with 2 rows of ends, a needle size from the underarm seam. Keeps them all quite even. I'm going to carry on, do that all the way up, finish the end, and give it a slight tug to make sure they're all lying as flat as possible. Give it a bit of a steam press, and then I will cut these off, leaving about 1/4 of an inch still hanging. And that will be the sleeve done. Here we are getting ready to pick up stitches on the edge of the armhole opening. The steek has been cut open, and on my steek I always do the edge stitch in the background shade, and so you can see it creates a line that I can follow when I'm picking up stitches. The steek stitches themselves are done alternating shades, but I can just dive right down through the center of the stitches in this edge stitch row and pick up stitches. I like to go straight down and through and pick up. This way the yarn is completely around both sides of the fabric. It's not pulling on a particular strand. It's almost like a sewn seam picking up this way, and I really like it. Right here I'm trying to see the next stitch, what it looks like. It must be a paprika stitch. So yes, there it is there. And I actually pick up a stitch in every row. Then I count and see how many I've got compared to how many I'm supposed to have per the pattern. There are other ways to pick up stitches, of course, but this is my preferred method. I just really like the way they are solidly picked up and firmly attached to the body of the garment. Now, I've picked up all my stitches. Here's my shoulder seam, which I did by a 3-needle bind off. And the steek stitches, I'd cast them off, but I'd left the edge stitch live, and it was part of the 3-needle bind off. So that enabled me to pick up stitches up and over. You can see the 3-needle bind off seam. It just becomes almost invisible, doesn't it? But that, by keeping the edge stitch live, that allowed me to pick up stitches right across and over the top of the seam, the shoulder seam. I did a lot of knitting this month, of course, watching the Olympics. Here is the top of the sleeve, working down from the body of the garment. I'm working on this 16-inch, so that's a 40-centimeter circular needle, and I'll work on that as long as I can, and then the plan was to either switch to double pointeds or magic loop or whatever, but I sort of came up with my own little take on how to do small circumference circular knitting, and I'm going to show you that. I'm sure I'm not the first one to think of this, but I haven't actually seen it being done, so I'm quite interested to show you. Here's my small sleeve. It's very small circumference. They're nice tight sleeves, and this little underarm area, that's where the body split when the steek stitches were put in there. It actually sort of pulled it, so that'll have to be repaired with a couple of good stitches put in there to tidy that up. It won't be a problem. So I'll carry on knitting down for as long as I can on the one needle, and then I'll show you my new trick. Here's my sleeve. I'm trying something new. I'm using 3 short 3.25 millimeter circular needles. They are 16 inches, so 30 centimeters long. And there's one. There's the second one. And then there's the third one. The start of the round is where the first and third needles meet. So there's all my ends. And on this round, we're using Sholmet and Shayla, the 2 grays. The light gray is the pattern, and the dark gray is the background. So I'm getting them in position all ready to start. It's a 3x3 repeat, but it starts with 1 pattern stitch, which is a decrease on this round. So I've got my yarn sort of in my mind. Where did my marker go? There it is. Fell off. So that's my beginning end of round marker. So we're going to knit 2 together in the pattern shade, and then from now on it's a 3x3, and now it's my background shade. So 1 stitch in the background, And just because we're right at the very end, just because we're right at the very beginning of the round, I'm going to lock the yarns together a little bit here. So I've done one back round. I'm going to go down and under the pattern shade for my second background stitch, and then go down and back under and back to the top for my third stitch. So both of those yarns are sort of tied in. Their tails are still over here at the beginning of the round. There they are there. There's the old tails that I finished with. These are the new tails. And I'm going to carry on and do a 3x3, and you'll see how everything works at the change of needles. So background on the top, pattern on the bottom. These grays are really quite distinct in real life, but I see here on camera they're not as obvious shade-wise, so maybe you'll see it better. Maybe what I'm seeing on my monitor isn't accurate. So I'm coming up to the end of this needle. There's only 2 here, so I'll do 1, 2 in the pattern color. I'm going to slide that tip out and make it go under the next needle. Zoom that next needle back. Holding this tip aligned parallel with the needle I'm going to be working on. I need to finish the third stitch of the pattern shade. Three of the background shade. Carry on. And I can let that needle tip go now. You'll see sometimes I use both fingers to flick, other times my index finger flicks both shades of yarn. It doesn't matter, you just sort of go along and do whatever's comfortable. Coming to the end of a needle, and there's only 1 stitch here in the pattern shade, and then we change needles. So making sure that tip goes under the needle we're going to be working on. Now, when a lot of people don't like knitting on sleeves because you're slinging your whole sweater around. Grab your sweater as a bunch and turn it. Don't just turn it by the sleeve. There's no tension on the sleeve when I turn the sweater. I'm grabbing the sweater itself. So here we are, we're going to be working on our third needle. There's my working yarns. This is the old needle. Zooming back out again. Okay, so here we're going to be starting on our third needle. This is the second needle I just worked off of. It's coming down and underneath and across the knitting. Here's my new needle. There's the second and third pattern stitch. Back to the 3 and 3 repeat. Coming to the end of the round here, as you can see from this stitch marker. The end of the round calls for 1 stitch in the pattern color, and it's a decrease stitch. So at the beginning of the round I knit 2 together, and at the end of the round I'm going to knit 2 together through the back loop. And then that way the decreases are sort of they're facing the seam, the underarm seam. When I stop, just to keep that marker in control, from falling off, I tend to put a stitch or 2 from the beginning of the round just to hold everything. So there you go. That's one round of knitting a sleeve on 3 small circular needles. So in this row, I'm going to knit along with you. It's a repeat of 3 background, then 3 stitches pattern, background, pattern. So 3 background, pattern, background, pattern, repeated throughout the round. And I'm just going to knit it to show you that keeping your pattern shade on the down path, the lower path, you can put it to your left, which is an easy way to keep it on the lower path, and put your pattern shade, your background shade, to the right, so your yarns are not crossing, and you can knit the whole round. Your yarns will never cross, and it keeps your yarn dominance, that dreaded yarn dominance, in place, and it doesn't tangle your yarn. So here we go. 1 background. I'm going to snug up that stitch below. Now see, I automatically want to do this two-handed, but I will show you two-handed. And then I'm going to switch to my using just the one hand. I'm actually finding two-handed a little bit uncomfortable these days. So I'm going to switch right now to just using the yarns on the same hand. But you'll see they're still separate. Oops, that's a stitch that wasn't completed properly. I'll just fix that. So that's the third background. Then pattern, background, pattern. So pattern from below. See how my finger's picking it up from below? Pattern, background, pattern. 3 background. Coming up to the end of the needle. 3 background, 1, 2, make sure you don't catch that bottom stitch. Pull your needle out from underneath the next needle, push the next needle back into position, holding them both with your left hand. Still keeping your yarns coming from the right directions. This is a background stitch. Pattern, background, pattern. Now, sometimes I position the yarns on my index finger like this and keep both yarns in motion all the time by tensioning with my pinky. So you're moving your whole hand rather than just your finger. I will never tell you one way is better than another. Everybody has to find the technique that works for them. And but to be honest, it's really good to have feel comfortable in all different techniques of holding your yarns, because then you can switch them up. And I really do believe that it helps to alleviate the tension on the muscles here in your arm. People get, strained ligaments and, too much knitting. Sounds crazy, but it happens. And if you learn how to switch up holding your yarns, you can just, do this for a little while and then flick with your finger for a little while and then go, oh, well, this is a good round that looks really good for two-handed knitting. I'll do that for a little while. See, talking. have to frog back. That should have been a background stitch. Pattern. 3 background. When I'm not talking, I can actually knit faster. Coming up to a needle change. Now, I'm not against double pointed needles. It just happens that I didn't have metal double pointed needles, and I didn't really want to use wood because wood does change my tension. It might not change yours. Flinging the whole sweater around in one go, not using the sleeve to fling your sweater, grabbing the whole sweater to fling it around. So pattern, 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 background, pattern. So this is 3 backgrounds, holding that needle parallel to the next working needle. Oops. Flinging the sweater sometimes gets your yarn tangled up in the all the needles. Just a short little tink there. If you watch the stitches below, you can tell if you're off pattern. Coming up to the end, it's pattern, background, pattern, background, the end of the round. So that tells me that I should have completed that round correctly. So I'm just going to slip a couple of stitches over to hold that end of round marker. So to me, this is almost like magic loop without the loops. The loops would really be hanging on either side here. But in this case, I'm using 3 needles and no magic, no loops. So this could be the new 3 short needle round. I got this idea because I really wanted those new Addy Flexi tips, and my yarn store, my local yarn store, doesn't have them yet. Seems they're in short supply because there's such a high demand. And then I thought, well, why not just use 3 short circular needles? And luckily I had 3 3.25 16 millimeter needles. See, there they are. And don't ask me why anybody would need 3 of these, but so obviously I buy needles sometimes without realizing what I've got at home. And so anyway, I'm actually, to be really, really, really honest, I'm not just saying this, I am loving this, the 3 needle concept. And I will probably do this from now on. I've also read that the flexi needles will be great for socks. You're working on smaller, even smaller circumferences, but I think they might be too floppy for this I don't know, I probably still will buy a set and give them a try, just for interest's sake, and I'll do a little review for you. But I really do love this 3-needle sleeve idea. And so what I'm going to do here is next time I knit this needle, I'm going to knit a few more stitches off of the next one just to keep the needle even. I feel it's getting just a little bit lopsided here. Well, maybe not when I look at it that way. Okay, so hopefully at the beginning when I introduced this video, I'm sitting in Lerwick and it's finished, and we're talking about maybe the next Farrell project.